There comes a moment in life when you stop and wonder, why do I still feel empty? You've done everything they told you to do, worked hard, chased success, built a life that should make you happy. But late at night, when the world is quiet, there's a silence inside you that no achievement can fill. You tell yourself, maybe I need more money, more love, more recognition. So you keep running toward a future where happiness finally arrives. But what if you've been searching in the wrong place? What if happiness isn't ahead of you, but has been within you all along? This is the story of a lost traveler, a man who searched the world for happiness, never realizing it was closer than he ever imagined, until one day he met a wise monk, and in a single moment, everything changed. By the end of this story, you may never look at life the same way again. Listen closely, because this might be the moment that changes you. There once was a traveler who had spent years searching for happiness. He had climbed mountains, crossed deserts, and wandered through great cities, seeking wisdom from scholars, kings, and mystics. He had acquired wealth, experienced love, and achieved success, yet none of it filled the emptiness inside him. No matter what he gained, happiness always seemed just out of reach, slipping away like water through his fingers. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the sky, the weary traveler found himself at the edge of a dense forest. In the distance, nestled between ancient trees, he saw a monastery, its wooden gates slightly open as if inviting him in. With the last of his strength, he walked towards it, hoping that within its walls, he would finally find the answer he had been seeking. Inside, the monastery was silent, except for the gentle rustling of leaves in the wind. At the heart of the courtyard, an old monk sat cross-legged, his eyes closed, his face serene. The traveler hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and spoke, his voice heavy with desperation. He told the monk of his endless search, of the countless places he had visited, and the treasures he had gathered, only to remain unfulfilled. Finally, he asked, "What is the greatest secret to happiness?" The monk slowly opened his eyes and looked at the traveler with a quiet smile. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he gestured for the traveler to sit beside him. Minutes passed in silence. The traveler grew restless. He had expected wisdom, an explanation, an immediate revelation, but the monk remained quiet, simply listening to the wind. After a while, the monk stood up and walked to a small wooden table where a teapot and an empty cup rested. He picked up the teapot and began to pour tea into the cup. The traveler watched as the tea filled the cup to the brim, but the monk did not stop. He continued pouring, and soon the tea overflowed, spilling onto the table and dripping onto the floor. Alarmed, the traveler spoke. "Master, the cup is full, it can't hold any more." The monk stopped pouring and looked at him with knowing eyes. "This," he said, "is how most people live. They fill their minds with endless desires, more wealth, more success, more validation. They believe happiness is something to be added. But when the cup is already full, what happens when you try to add more?" The traveler stared at the spilled tea, deep in thought. Slowly, understanding dawned upon him. "It overflows," he whispered, "and nothing truly stays." The monk nodded. "Happiness is not about adding more. It is about emptying your cup, letting go." Still reflecting on these words, the traveler followed the monk as they walked through the monastery garden. The air was cool, and the sound of rustling bamboo filled the space between them. After a while, the monk bent down and picked up a large stone. He held it out to the traveler. "Carry this with you," he said. The traveler took the stone and continued walking. At first, it seemed like a small task, but after several minutes, his arms grew tired. The stone felt heavier with every step. Finally, he turned to the monk and said, "Master, this stone is heavy." The monk simply smiled. "Then why do you continue to carry it?" The traveler stopped walking. He looked at the stone in his hands, then at the path ahead. With a deep breath, he let it go. The weight disappeared instantly, and in its place came a feeling he had not expected: relief. The monk gestured toward the trees, their branches swaying effortlessly with the wind. Do you see how the trees dance? They do not hold on to the wind. They let it pass through them. That is happiness. It is not in holding on, but in letting go. The traveler was silent. He watched as the leaves rustled, the wind flowing freely through them, and for the first time in his life, he understood. He had spent years searching for something that had always been within him. Happiness was never something to chase. It was something to allow. It was not in gaining more, but in letting go. As the sun began to rise, the traveler sat quietly in the monastery courtyard, his heart lighter than it had ever been. He had finally found what he was looking for, not in a distant land, not in wealth or achievements, but in a simple truth. Happiness is not in the future. It is in this moment, in this breath, in this life you are already living. Let go, and happiness will find you. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you believe in finding meaning in life, consider subscribing to this channel. Your journey doesn't end here. It's only just beginning.